John Miller straightened his tie and took a deep breath. After 20 years as Earth's ambassador to the Galactic Council, this would be his final appearance before them. The massive chamber stretched before him, filled with representatives from over 200 alien species. Most looked down on humans as newcomers, as primitives who had stumbled onto faster-than-light travel by luck rather than skill. The council's curved walls glowed with soft blue light. The 7 elder species sat at the highest tier, as they had for thousands of years. Below them sat the secondary members, species who had been in space for at least 5 centuries. Humans and 30 other developing species occupied the lowest level, where they could barely see the elders at all. The representative from Earth may now address the council, announced the Zalaxian chairperson, not bothering to hide the boredom in his voice. John stepped forward, his footsteps echoing across the suddenly quiet chamber. For 20 years, I have stood in this spot and asked for fair treatment, John began. For 20 years, humans have contributed technology, resources, and ideas to the galactic community. And for 20 years, we have been treated as children who need guidance rather than equals who deserve respect. A murmur spread through the chamber. The elder representatives shifted uncomfortably. They weren't used to such direct language. Earth has fulfilled every requirement you set before us. We have shared our unique technologies. We have opened our borders to trade. We have even limited our military growth as requested. In return, you have taken our innovations, restricted our expansion, and kept us from forming alliances with other species. The chairperson leaned forward. Ambassador Miller, if you have specific complaints, there are proper channels. We have used your proper channels for 2 decades, John cut in. Today, I am not here to file another complaint. I am here to inform you that as of this moment, Earth withdraws from the Galactic Council. The chamber erupted in shouts and gasps. Several representatives stood up in protest. The elders conferred urgently among themselves. This is simply not permitted, the chairperson said when the noise died down. No species has ever withdrawn from the council. The consequences would be severe. John smiled. The consequences have already been severe for us. Now they will be severe for you. He pulled out a small device and pressed it. The holographic Earth flag that had stood behind his speaking position vanished. Effective immediately, all trade agreements with Council species are suspended. All Earth scientists working on Council projects are returning home. All human innovations currently in development will remain Earth property. This is outrageous, shouted a secondary member. Your species cannot survive without Council protection. John looked at them, all one last time. We survived for thousands of years before we met you. I think we'll manage. With that, he turned and walked toward the exit. No human had ever walked out during a council session before. Back on Earth, President Susan Clark watched the broadcast with her advisors. The large screen showed the council in disarray as John left. It's done, she said quietly. Begin Phase 2. Her chief of staff, Bill Gordon, nodded and left the room to give the orders they had prepared years ago. Susan turned to her military advisor. Are our defenses ready? General Kate Morris nodded. Yes, Madam President. The shield network is active. If they try to attack, they'll get a nasty surprise. And our allies? Susan asked her foreign minister. The Nexeri have confirmed their support, he replied. The Trellin and Vox governments will announce their alliance with Earth tomorrow. Susan looked back at the screen. The council members were still arguing, pointing fingers, making threats. None of them understood what had just happened. None of them realized that humanity had been preparing for this day for years. They think we're helpless without them, Susan said. They've never understood us at all. Outside the White House, normal life continued. Citizens went about their day, unaware that their world had just changed forever. But soon, everyone would know. Soon, the galaxy would learn what humanity could really do when freed from the Council's chains. And nothing would ever be the same again. Just 7 days after Earth's withdrawal from the Galactic Council, the first signs of trouble appeared. On the trading hub world of Zentura, prices for common goods doubled overnight. Merchants who relied on human metals and minerals found their shelves empty. Council officials tried to calm the growing panic, but their words rang hollow. In the council's economic chamber, the blue-skinned ex-Loshan named Zix presented his findings to the emergency committee. "This is merely the beginning," Zix said, his 6 fingers tapping nervously on the display. "Human innovation has become essential to our supply chains. Their unique approach to problem-solving has driven progress in ways we fail to notice." The elder representatives shifted uncomfortably. One of them, a tall Vreelan with silvery scales, spoke up. "Surely we can replace human contributions. They've only been in space for 50 years. Zix shook his head. "You don't understand. Humans solve problems differently. Where we seek perfection through careful analysis over decades, they find workable solutions in weeks. We've grown dependent on their methods without admitting it." Meanwhile, at the edge of human space, Captain Lisa Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the U.S. Defiant. The ship was officially classified as a diplomatic vessel. In reality, it carried Earth's newest defensive technology, developed in secret while still under Council restrictions. "Captain, 3 Vreelan warships approaching," reported her first officer, Gary Peters. Lisa nodded calmly. "Hold position. Let them make the first move." The Vreelan ships formed a blockade position. Their commander's face appeared on the main screen. "Earth vessel, this is Commander Threx of the Galactic Council. You are ordered to power down and prepare for inspection." Lisa smiled politely. "Commander, we are in unclaimed space. The Council has no authority here since Earth's withdrawal." The Vreelan's scales darkened with anger. "This is your final warning. Power down or face consequences." Lisa looked at Gary and nodded slightly. He pressed a sequence on his console, activating their hidden systems. "We decline," Lisa said simply. The lead Vreelan ship fired what they called a warning shot, a weapon powerful enough to crack a small moon. The energy beam struck the Defiant directly. And nothing happened. The beam hit the invisible shield surrounding the Earth ship and dissipated completely. Not even a flicker of the lights showed that they had been hit. "What is this?" demanded the Vreelan commander, his voice rising in pitch. "This is human innovation," Lisa replied. "The same innovation you restricted and dismissed for decades. We didn't share everything with the Council, Commander. Not by a long shot." Back on Earth, Frank Williams sat in his underground office, reviewing reports from human agents across Council space. As Director of Intelligence, he had placed these operatives years ago, preparing for this moment. "Sir," his assistant said, "we're getting interesting signals from the Nexori worlds." Frank looked up. "What kind of signals?" "Several minor species have approached Nexori diplomats about leaving the Council. They're inspired by our withdrawal." Frank leaned back in his chair. "Sooner than we expected. Make sure our Nexori allies have everything they need to facilitate these conversations." In the Council chambers, the emergency session continued into its 3rd day. The elders argued among themselves, each blaming the others for failing to control the humans properly. "We should have been stricter with them from the beginning," insisted the Duraxian representative. "No, we should have integrated them more fully into our systems," countered the Mercatian delegate. Neither considered that perhaps they should have treated humans as equals. On a small trading outpost near the former Council border, 2 merchants, 1 human and 1 Trellan, finalized a new trade agreement. The human offered fair terms, much better than the Council had ever allowed. "Is it true?" asked the Trellan, his wide eyes blinking rapidly. "Will other species be allowed to join your new alliance?" The human trader nodded. "Earth believes in partnership, not control. Tell your people there's another way forward now." As news spread through the galaxy, the tremors of change grew stronger. The Council had stood for 10,000 years, unquestioned and supreme. Now, for the first time, alternatives were emerging, and many were beginning to wonder what else the humans might have kept hidden during their years of apparent compliance. 3 months after Earth's withdrawal, the resource crisis hit the galaxy hard. Council worlds that had once looked down on primitive humans now faced shortages of critical materials. Elements that Council scientists had dismissed as worthless turned out to be essential components in technologies humans had developed and shared. On the mining colony of Keltara IV, Diane Powell watched as 3 council officials marched into her office. The human administrator kept her face calm as they demanded she restart shipments to council worlds. "I'm afraid that's not possible," Diane said, her voice steady. "Earth colonies now trade exclusively with our new partners." The lead official, a tall Duraxian, leaned over her desk. "This is unacceptable. The council will not be held hostage by human greed." Diane smiled. "It's interesting you mention greed. For years, the council set prices for our resources at a fraction of their value. Now we trade fairly with the Nexari Confederation." The Nexari. The Duraxian's eyes widened. Those backwater worlds. They were barely considered civilized by council standards. "Perhaps your standards were wrong," Diane replied. "They treat us as equals. You never did." Back on Earth, engineer Paul Nelson stood before a crowd of reporters. Behind him sat a sleek new spacecraft unlike anything humans had publicly revealed before. "Today marks the official unveiling of the Aurora Drive," Paul announced. "This propulsion system allows travel at speeds the Council claimed were theoretically impossible." "How long has this technology existed?" asked a reporter. Paul's expression remained neutral. "We developed it 5 years ago, but were prevented from implementing it by Council restrictions. Those restrictions no longer apply." The implications spread across the galaxy like wildfire. Humans had not only been holding back technologies, but had been developing capabilities far beyond what the Council believed possible. In the presidential office in Washington, Susan Clark welcomed an unexpected visitor. The Throck diplomat stood awkwardly in the human-designed room, clearly uncomfortable with Earth's higher gravity. "The Council has authorized me to offer generous concessions for Earth's return," the diplomat stated, "including a seat among the secondary members and reduced trade restrictions." Susan studied the alien carefully. "Just 3 months ago, you wouldn't even consider us for secondary status. What changed?" The Throck shifted uncomfortably. "Certain supply issues have emerged. The Council believes these can be resolved through renewed cooperation." "You mean you're running out of the materials only we can provide?" Susan said. "And you've realized those materials are more valuable than you admitted." "The terms are quite generous," the diplomat insisted. Susan stood. "We appreciate the offer, but Earth prefers our new arrangements with equals rather than masters. Please convey that to the Council." After the diplomat left, Susan called her economic advisor. "How are our new trade networks developing?" "Better than expected," he replied. "The Nexari have opened their markets completely to us. The Trellans and Vox are following suit, and 6 more species have reached out about joining our alliance." On the Council capital world, protests broke out in front of the Grand Council building. Citizens from dozens of worlds demanded answers about missing medicines, failing technology, and rising prices. Council security forces pushed them back, but cameras captured the growing unrest. Inside those same council chambers, the elders met in a closed session. "We must address the human problem directly," said the Freeland representative. "Their defiance threatens the entire galactic order." "Our military reports are concerning," admitted the Duraxian elder. "The technology displayed by human vessels suggests capabilities we didn't believe they possessed." "How did we miss this?" asked another elder. "How did they advance so quickly without our knowledge?" None wanted to admit the truth, that they had deliberately ignored human potential, convinced of their own superiority. That blindness now threatened everything they had built over thousands of years. In a research facility on Mars, Dr. Michelle Grant reviewed the final tests on a medical breakthrough that would have been suppressed under Council rules. The treatment could save millions across the galaxy, including species the Council had deemed low priority for medical research. "Send the data to our Nexari partners," she told her team. Let's show the galaxy what happens when science serves everyone, not just the powerful. 6 months after Earth's departure, Council research facilities across the galaxy began to stall. Projects that had shown steady progress for years suddenly hit roadblocks. New discoveries dried up. Breakthroughs became rare. The truth was simple but painful for the Council to admit. They had relied on human scientists to solve their hardest problems while taking credit for the solutions. In a private meeting on the Council capital world, the head of the Galactic Science Division faced angry questions from the elders. "How is it possible that progress has slowed so dramatically?" demanded the Mercatian elder. "Humans were just one species among hundreds in our research network." The science director looked uncomfortable. "We assigned human scientists to our most challenging theoretical problems. They had a knack for solving issues that stumped our best minds for decades. And you never thought to mention this." The Vreelan elder's scales darkened with anger. "We didn't believe they understood the significance of their work," the director admitted. "We thought they were simply lucky." Meanwhile, on Earth, Dr. Michelle Grant published a groundbreaking paper on interspecies medicine. Under Council rules, this research would have been suppressed as potentially destabilizing to the established medical hierarchy. Within days, her work spread across the galaxy through Earth's Noob Alliance network. Hospitals on Nexari worlds immediately implemented her treatments, saving thousands of lives among species the Council had deemed low priority for medical care. "We always had the capability to help these people," Michelle told a reporter. "The Council just wouldn't let us." On the Council capital, citizens gathered outside medical centers, demanding access to the new human treatments. Council officials insisted the treatments were untested and dangerous, but leaked reports showed they were simply effective and affordable, threatening the profits of Council medical corporations. In a secure room deep beneath Geneva, Frank Williams, Earth's intelligence director, met with his top analysts. "We've confirmed the breach," said his deputy, Carol Young. "Council military intelligence just discovered that their most sensitive databases were compromised years ago." Frank nodded. "Right on schedule. What's their reaction?" "Panic," Carol replied. "They're realizing we didn't just take our bodies when we left. We took knowledge they claimed we weren't advanced enough to understand." Frank studied the holographic display showing Council fleet movements. "And now they know we know their weaknesses." In space, the balance of power shifted daily. Council battleships that once patrolled human borders now stayed close to their home systems, uncertain of what human ships might be capable of. Captain Lisa Rodriguez, now commanding a squadron of Earth vessels, charted unexplored regions that Council restrictions had placed off-limits to humans. Her ships discovered 3 habitable planets in just 1 month, planets the Council had known about but kept secret from lesser species. They wanted to keep the best worlds for themselves, Lisa told her crew as they established a research outpost on a pristine blue planet. But space is big enough for everyone to have a fair share. On Earth, President Susan Clark received a concerning report. The most aggressive Council species, the Duraxians, were assembling a battle fleet near their homeworld. Intelligence suggested they planned to make an example of Earth to discourage other species from leaving the Council. "They still don't understand us," Susan told her advisors. "They think one show of force will make us surrender." "Should we strike first?" asked her military advisor, General Kate Morris. Susan shook her head. "No, we'll let them throw the first punch. Then they'll learn exactly what they're dealing with." Across the galaxy, minor species watched closely. The Trellans, Vox, and Nexeri had already allied with Earth. Now 12 more species had secret representatives on Earth, discussing terms for joining what was being called the Galactic Cooperative. A Trellan diplomat summed it up best. "For 10,000 years, the Council told us how the galaxy must be ordered. Humans showed us there are other ways, better ways, and we are no longer afraid to try them." The Council's 10-millennia monopoly on truth was crumbling, and not even their mighty fleets could stop it. As the 1-year anniversary of Earth's withdrawal approached, The galaxy entered a new phase of turmoil. 7 species officially announced their departure from the Galactic Council to join Earth's growing alliance. The Council, which had stood unchallenged for 10,000 years, now faced an existential threat. In an emergency session, the Council finally acknowledged the crisis and voted to restore order by any means necessary. The vote was not unanimous, a first in Council history. "We cannot allow this rebellion to continue," the Duraxian elder said to the assembled representatives. "If we must use force to bring the humans back into compliance, then so be it." Only the Mercatian elder voiced concern. "Perhaps we should consider why so many wish to leave. Our treatment of developing species." "Silence," shouted the Vreelan elder. "This is not the time for self-reflection. This is the time for action." The Council approved the assembly of the largest military force seen in 2,000 years. Ships from all elder species gathered near the Duraxian homeworld, preparing for what they believed would be a swift campaign to subjugate Earth and its allies. On Earth, General Steve Martinez stood in the Global Defense Center, watching as the Council fleet took shape. Holographic displays showed the positions of every Council vessel. "Their force is 5 times larger than we anticipated," said his assistant, Major Helen Wright. Steve nodded calmly. "And yet, still smaller than we can handle." "Sir, the Council doesn't understand human warfare, Helen. They fight by rules established millennia ago. We've spent the last 20 years studying their tactics while developing counters they've never seen." Across the room, President Susan Clark entered with her advisors. "General, what's your assessment?" "They'll attack within 2 days," Steve replied. "They're forming a classic Duraxian spearhead formation. They plan to break through our outer defenses in a single push." Susan studied the display. "And our allies? The Nexari have positioned their fleet to protect their core worlds. The Trellans and Vox are implementing the defense systems we provided, and our new partners are evacuating civilians from border areas." Susan's expression was solemn. "We knew this day would come. We hoped the Council would be reasonable, but prepared for them to be themselves." The first battle occurred near Saturn's rings. The Council sent a vanguard force to test Earth's defenses and establish a forward base. Commander Grace Phillips led a small fleet of Earth vessels to intercept them. From the bridge of her flagship, the U.S. Horizon, Grace watched as the Council force approached, 20 ships against her 5. "All ships, activate Aurora shields," she ordered. "Weapons on standby, but do not fire until fired upon." The Council commander's face appeared on her screen. "Earth vessels, this is Commander Zal of the Galactic Council. Surrender immediately or be destroyed." Grace met his gaze steadily. "This is Commander Phillips of Earth Defense. You are in sovereign Earth territory. We have no wish for conflict, but we will defend ourselves if attacked." The alien commander sneered. "You have no concept of what you face, human." The Council ships opened fire, unleashing weapons that could shatter moons. The energy beams struck the Earth vessels and dissipated harmlessly against their shields. "Second warning," Grace said calmly. "Withdraw your forces." Instead, the Council ships fired again, with the same result. Grace sighed. "All ships, implement Battle Plan Echo." What followed shocked the watching Council fleet. The Earth vessels moved with impossible speed, executing maneuvers the Council had deemed physically unworkable. Their weapons targeted specific systems rather than attempting to destroy the Council ships outright. In less than 20 minutes, all 20 Council vessels were disabled but intact, their crews unharmed but unable to fight or flee. Grace opened a channel to all ships. "Your life support remains functional. We will notify the Council of your location for retrieval. Please consider this demonstration when advising your leaders on future actions against Earth." News of the battle spread across Council space, transmitted through both official channels and the network of informants Earth had cultivated. For the first time, Council citizens saw their invincible fleet defeated without the humans even destroying a single ship. On the Council capital, The elders received the news with disbelief. "How is this possible?" demanded the Duraxian elder. "They are just humans." The Mercatian elder looked thoughtful. Perhaps that is exactly why they won. 18 months after Earth's departure, the Galactic Council's economy began to collapse. What had started as resource shortages and research delays turned into a full system breakdown. Trade routes that had functioned for thousands of years now sat empty. Council credits, once the galaxy's most stable currency, lost value daily. On Earth, economic advisor Alan Peterson watched the situation unfold with mixed feelings. He stood before President Susan Clark and her cabinet, presenting his latest analysis. "The suffering among ordinary citizens of Council worlds wasn't our goal," Alan said, pointing to images of food lines on once prosperous planets. "But it may be necessary for a more fair galactic community to emerge from this crisis." Susan nodded solemnly. "How bad will it get?" The 7 elder species built a system that kept them on top at everyone else's expense. Alan explained. "Now that system is eating itself. The Duraxians and Vreelands are blaming each other for military failures. The Mercatians can't maintain economic control without human resources." "And the common people?" Susan asked. "They're beginning to question everything they've been told. Council media can't hide the truth anymore, that their leaders have been wrong about humans, wrong about their own superiority, wrong about how the galaxy should function." The meeting was interrupted when a diplomatic aide rushed in. "Madam President, the Mercatian Empire has sent an official request for direct negotiations." Outside Council channels. This was unprecedented. The Mercatians, the Council's economic powerhouse, had never dealt with lesser species, except through Council institutions. 2 days later, Ambassador Nancy Hughes welcomed the Mercatian delegation to the new Galactic Cooperation Center in Geneva. The aliens looked uncomfortable, unused to treating humans as equals. The Mercatian Consortium seeks to establish bilateral trade relations with Earth, their lead negotiator stated stiffly. "Recent disruptions have made this a priority." Nancy smiled warmly. "We welcome trade with all peaceful species, but we must be clear. Earth now operates under different principles than the Council. We believe in fair exchange and mutual benefit." She slid a data tablet across the table. The Mercatian's eyes widened as he reviewed the proposed terms. "These rates are fair," Nancy finished for him. "Not exploitative like the Council's. You'll still profit, just not at the extreme levels you're accustomed to." The Mercatian seemed to struggle internally before responding. "My government will find these terms acceptable." As news of the Mercatian deal spread, other Council worlds began reaching out directly to Earth. The Council's monopoly on galactic trade was breaking apart. Meanwhile, a new situation developed at Earth's borders. Refugee ships began arriving. Civilians fleeing the economic collapse and political instability of Council worlds. President Clark called an emergency meeting to address the crisis. "What are we looking at?" she asked her advisors. "Mostly ordinary citizens," said her security chief. "Some are scientists who want to work freely. Others are merchants who see opportunity. Many are from species the Council considered expendable." Susan didn't hesitate. "We welcome them all. Set up processing centers. Find them homes and work. Show the galaxy that our quarrel was never with its people, only with the Council's corrupt system." On a refugee processing station near Mars, a young family of Trellans met with a human aid worker. The father, clutching his 2 children close, spoke softly. "We heard humans treat everyone fairly, even newcomers. Is this true?" The aid worker, Sam Cooper, smiled. "It's what we strive for. We haven't always gotten it right in our own history, but we've learned from our mistakes. That's something the Council never did." The Trellans seemed to relax slightly. "The Council told us humans were dangerous, unpredictable, but they also said you would collapse without their guidance. That was clearly a lie." Sam nodded. "There were many lies, but now you can see the truth for yourself." Back on the Council capital, The once Grand Council chamber was half empty. Representatives from more than 30 worlds had simply stopped attending. The remaining members argued constantly, their unity shattered. The Duraxian elder pounded his fist on the table. Enough. We must strike at Earth directly. Show the galaxy what happens to those who defy us. The Vreelan elder hissed in agreement. A decisive victory would bring the lesser species back in line. Only the Mercatian elder remained silent, knowing what his government had already done, reached out to the humans in desperation. The foundations of the old order weren't just cracking now. They were crumbling completely. 2 years after humanity's departure, the unthinkable happened. The Galactic Council, which had ruled for 10 millennia, officially dissolved. What began as a unified body of elder species devolved into competing factions, each blaming the others for failing to recognize the human threat. The announcement came not with grand ceremony, but with a simple message broadcast across all standard communication channels. The Galactic Council has concluded its final session. All member worlds are released from charter obligations. On Earth, President Susan Clark watched the broadcast with her advisors. The room was silent as the magnitude of what they had accomplished settled in. "We never set out to destroy the Council," Susan said quietly. "We just wanted to be treated as equals." "The Council destroyed itself," replied her chief diplomat, Jack Nelson. "Their system couldn't survive being questioned." Susan turned to her military chief. "And the Duraxians?" "Still making threats," General Kate Morris answered. "The other former elder species are distancing themselves, but the Duraxians refuse to accept the new reality." Susan nodded. "Then we need to prepare for one final confrontation." Admiral Kevin Russell commanded Earth's diplomatic fleet as it traveled to former Council worlds. His mission was to visit each planet and offer membership in the new Galactic Cooperative. On the bridge of his flagship, the U.S. Liberty, he greeted delegations from worlds that once looked down on humans. "The cooperative has only one core principle," Kevin explained to representatives from a dozen species. "All sentient beings deserve equal rights, equal opportunities, and equal voices in decisions that affect them." A former Council diplomat spoke up. "But surely some species must lead. Some must have greater influence based on their age and wisdom." Kevin smiled. "Age doesn't guarantee wisdom. The Council proved that. In the cooperative, influence comes from what you contribute, not who you are or how long your civilization has existed." Many accepted Earth's offer eagerly, having suffered under Council rule for centuries. Some remained hesitant, cautious after millennia of Council propaganda about human unpredictability. Then came the day the Duraxians made their move. A battle fleet of 100 ships appeared near Earth's orbit, having used ancient jump technology that bypassed standard detection systems. The Duraxian commander's message was broadcast globally. "Humans, you have destroyed what took thousands of years to build. For this crime, your world will be reduced to ash. The galaxy will witness the price of defiance." Earth had anticipated this final, desperate attack. The planetary defense system, now fully operational, activated automatically. A network of satellites circling the planet locked onto the Duraxian vessels. President Clark addressed the Duraxian commander directly from the defense center. "Your weapons cannot harm us. Your threats cannot frighten us. I ask you one final time to stand down." "Humans do not give orders to Duraxians," the commander snarled. "Open fire." The Duraxian ships launched their attack simultaneously, unleashing planet-killing weapons against Earth. The energy blasts hit the planetary shield and stopped. Not a single weapon penetrated. Earth's response was measured and precise. Rather than destroying the Duraxian ships, the defense system targeted their engines and weapon systems. Within minutes, the entire fleet drifted powerless in space. "This is Earth defense," General Morris announced to the disabled fleet. "Your life support systems remain functional. We will not destroy your vessels or harm your crews. Transport ships are on the way to return your people safely to Duraxian space." The Duraxian commander could not comprehend this response. Why would you spare us? We would not have shown you such mercy. That's the difference between us, Susan replied simply. And why the council failed while we succeed. On the former council capital, reporter Julia Bennett documented a historic moment. Species that had been enemies for millennia worked side by side, dismantling the ornate council chambers. The building would be repurposed as a cultural center open to all galactic citizens. What do you think happens next? Julia asked an older Mercatian who was carefully removing a symbolic arch. The Mercatian considered the question. Something new. Something better, I hope. The humans have shown us another way is possible. Across the galaxy, worlds that had lived in fear of council retribution for thousands of years looked to the stars with new hope. The impossible had happened, and a better future beckoned. 5 years after humanity's withdrawal, the galaxy had transformed completely. The rigid hierarchy imposed by the Council for 10,000 years had been replaced by the Galactic Cooperative, a true democracy where all species had equal representation regardless of their technology level or how long they had traveled among the stars. On the anniversary of withdrawal, now celebrated across human space as Independence Day, President Susan Clark stood before a crowd gathered in Washington. Representatives from over 100 species sat in the audience, many from worlds that had once looked down on humans as primitive. 5 years ago, we took a step into the unknown. Susan began. We chose freedom over submission, equality over hierarchy, cooperation over control. Many doubted we could survive without council protection. Some feared we would become what we opposed, another power-seeking dominance. Today, we can see the results of our choice. She gestured to the diverse gathering before her. The cooperative now includes 217 member worlds. Trade flows freely. Knowledge is shared openly. And no species stands above others claiming superior wisdom or rights. As Susan finished her speech, she made a surprising announcement. Today marks my last address as president. In accordance with our laws, I will step down and welcome my successor. Leadership should never become permanent, a lesson the council never learned. The crowd rose in standing ovation as Susan welcomed her successor, Daniel Wright, to the stage. The peaceful transfer of power symbolized everything the cooperative stood for, that no individual or group should hold authority forever. Across the galaxy, the anniversary was marked in different ways. On former council worlds, citizens celebrated their new freedoms. On planets once deemed too primitive for council membership, people rejoiced in their equal status. Even on the homeworlds of the former elder species, many embraced the new order, finding unexpected benefits in treating others as equals. Most of the elder species had eventually joined the cooperative, though with significantly reduced influence. Their representatives privately admitted that the galaxy functioned better under the new arrangement than it ever had under their rule. The Diraxians were the last to join, their pride wounded by their defeat at Earth's hands. But necessity proved stronger than ancient prejudice. Their economy could not survive isolation, and the benefits of cooperative membership eventually outweighed their resistance. In rural Montana, former Ambassador John Miller sat on the porch of his small farmhouse, watching the sunset. The man whose walkout had started the transformation had chosen a quiet retirement, away from politics and diplomacy. A message alert chimed from his communication device. John was surprised to see the sender, the last arch-counselor of the defunct Galactic Council, a Mercatian who had once refused to even speak directly to human representatives. The message was brief. History will record that you were right, and we were wrong. The galaxy is better for it. John smiled but didn't reply. No response was needed. The results spoke for themselves. In orbit above Earth, the cooperative's new headquarters neared completion, a massive station where representatives from all member worlds could meet as equals. Its central chamber was circular, with no raised platforms or special seats for any species. By design, no one stood above others. In schools across the galaxy, children of hundreds of species learned a new history, how a young species called humans had challenged the established order not through conquest, but by simply refusing to accept inequality as natural or necessary. On the station, a simple plaque near the entrance bore words that would have been unthinkable under council rule. No species is inherently superior to any other. Our differences strengthen us. Our diversity guides us. Our equality defines us. A young Trellan student visiting the station with her class read the words aloud. She turned to her human guide with curiosity. Was it hard to change things? The council existed for so long. The guide, an older woman named Betty Harris, considered the question carefully. The hardest part wasn't standing up to the council. It was believing we could create something better. Once we believed that, everything else followed. As ships from hundreds of worlds docked at the station, carrying representatives to the cooperative's annual gathering, the stars themselves seemed brighter. The ancient chains of hierarchy had been broken, and the galaxy's future stretched out before them, unwritten, unbound, and full of possibility.